So this is where we were last time. Not 100% in love with this. I think I'll actually start from scratch. Not really a fan of where I was heading there. So let's see if we can find some cool visual assets to use. Okay. Got the gradients, got the 3D. Just needs to load here a bit. Let's try this one. Okay, and that's not too bad. The only thing is, does this suit itself well to overlapping? It doesn't. It's a bit too high contrast, so let's try this instead. If we do angle it that way, it does make sense for us to angle it towards this one. Okay. Hmm. Let's look for some inspiration. Okay, so let's try that. Let's try have something break out of a box here. Okay, so let's make this like this. There. So to update that. I guess we should play with scale a little bit here. Something like that. Create this sort of shape. If we create this sort of shape, I think it's probably good to add some more dimension to this. So let's add something brighter here. Not in love with the background color, so I'm just going to change that. This is very cookie cutter shit, but whatever. How many designs have you seen that are just fully blue or just are blue tinted like this? It's kind of boring, but we're going with it. Cool. Mm. Yeah, this concept's not really resonating. Let's see if the rest of this has loaded. Okay. We can go red. Yeah, red tint actually looks quite nice. Red tint. Something that'd be nice here would also be a gradient of this color. So we could do from this red to this orange, something like that. We probably want to make this a bit more vibrant. Something like that. Now, from a grid perspective and compositionally, how does this make sense? I think this only makes sense really if this extends to where the text roughly starts. So I think I have to kind of go there with it. It does feel a bit one-dimensional this way, though. Maybe an offset would solve that. Something like that. Let's kind of get a 45-degree angle on it. So something like this. Have it start there, move out a bit. It interferes a bit too much with the header that way though, so we need to probably lower this to roughly the header height like this. Okay. So let's think about this background. I think we should probably split that center like that. So does this make sense? Okay, so we have this orange chiming in here on the side. Does it make sense to have that full? So this is obviously very empty. So we need to figure out a way to fill this space somehow. Now I imagine as a security services company, I think you would want to have some additional services that you sell. So let's think about ways we can add that. Maybe we can do an overlay here for this section. Let me just kind of save this. Like that. And maybe we can kind of glass morphize this like that. And perhaps in here we can have some of the main services. I'll just pick abstract things for now. Sure, let's go with that. Right. So I guess in here you would want to have some kind of headline for each of these. So that's Maltech security systems. So I guess the service goes there. Actually, it makes more sense to have 3 services there, actually. So let's do this. Split this in 3. 1200 minus 64. Like that. Just kind of fill these out. Put some space there in between. And then just create a separate box here. All right. Yeah, something like that. I think we need to be a bit more generous with the spacing though. So let's take this and do 80. Something like that. Might actually be able to just do this. Set it this way. So we can set the padding on each side pretty high, I think. 64. That's a bit too high. Let's do 48. It's gonna be 64. Okay, nice. So, all right, so we need to move on to adding a little bit of information here. So let's grab this, line this, this, hug that a little bit. Okay. Paste that in. I don't think we need this much text for each. Something like that, I guess. I suppose too you would need some type of CTA associated with these. Let's do 320. Let's look for a button on these as well. Very bottom, something like that. Okay. I think that's fair enough, but I think we need to work on the stock imagery for these a little bit. So let's see what we can do there. I have a lot of particle shit. Is it time for some particle shit? It might be time for some particle shit. It's gonna take an absolute eternity to load, so let's give it a little minute here. All right. So let's see if we can't make something happen here. Fill, height of 320. Take this, paste to replace. Fill out the width a tad. Okie doke. So I think the only thing now is we want to recolor this a tad. Let's actually do this gradient and just bleed that. Just do color and then just paste to replace like that. Okay. I mean, that's fair enough, and that's convincing enough. Let's go with some radius here. Do we actually want to go with radius? Maybe it's actually better without it. Oh, let's go with radius. All right. Radius on the button, sort it out. Okay. I guess the question now is just what does this need? I think as of now it's a bit boring. Maybe we can add another layer here to liven it up a little bit. Um, let's maybe use this. Make this a fill. Sick. So I guess we can maybe take this group, move this over here a tad. So what makes sense grid-wise? I think it makes sense for us to have this just a tad below the hero text, and then move this perhaps there. The only issue with that is that this image becomes far less scannable this way. Liven it up like that. I like the idea of this. I like the idea of having things appear this way, in this kind of layered way. Spacing can be improved though. Let's move there for the spacing. Talk to the grid a bit. Here I think this gradient is getting a little bit tired. I think this is a bit too generic, maybe. Maybe this works. Though, if we do this, I think we're adding a lot of things right now, and I think that could cause this to be a bit less scannable than we probably want it to be. We have a lot of vibrant elements, so we need to cancel that out with some, or even that out with some less vibrant elements here. I think we can probably play with scale on this a little bit. You know, I think the main thing we're looking for here is to keep everything scannable quite quickly. We don't want to make this too busy. And with that, I think I'm just going to do this for backups. I think with that, probably need to think about a different way to lay this out. We do need the services in here, but let's think about it differently. Let's do something like this, perhaps, where we have the services listed on the side. If we do that, though, I think we will need to work with, we'll need to negotiate with the height of this a bit. So we can do something like that, maybe. But at this point, if we're doing it like this, I think we probably are better off having this side by side. So we're just going to try that in here. Okay, that's a bit better. So what's going on here? I think the thing here that I think is not really working is that the grid feels a little bit boring this way. Just the layout feels a bit boring this way. Let's see if we can solve that by raising this a tad. Have this be height filled. Not quite resonating the way I would like it to. Perhaps we can start here on this side for the graphic, and then have a second headline of a featured product here. I think that might be a bit more appealing. So we have a secondary service that can go below this. It's going to fill that. Okay. It's going to fill that out. Service goes here. Very nice. I think here it makes more sense to have a little bit more text as a description of the second service. All right. Okey-doke. Nice. Okay. So I think this makes more sense. I think we probably should fill this out here a little bit. Something like this. Let's see. Let's see. Security. Hackers are more advanced. Use AI to hack. Yeah, to infiltrate. Yeah, something more of a bit of a long-winded headline for that. I think makes sense. Okay. This doesn't really fit as well anymore. I think we want to reduce the saturation a bit. Hackers use AI to infiltrate. I think that works. The only thing that's not really working for me right now is this graphic. Perhaps we need to make a second thing for this so we can align things like that instead. Spacing here does not look great, so let's adjust that a tad. Infiltrate your systems. That makes more sense. I think we need to just adjust the spacing of this a tad. What would follow this? I think that makes sense as a follow-up headline. Hackers use AI to infiltrate. Yeah, fair enough. We are ready for any attack. So how would you depict that? We are ready for any attacks. I think this may be one of those icon sections. So let's create one of those. A security, something like that. This is a placeholder. Okay. Okay, need to top align that. Align this a bit. There, we just need some generic icon. Something like that. Updating that there. Okay. Then you can probably use the gradient here for this. Sort out the spacing a bit. Okay, so I think this works as is. I suppose the only thing is that there's something about this that is not as convincing as I would like it to be. I'm not exactly sure what. So let's open this up. The regular thing. All right. I suppose adding a few notes here, so you could say cyber, something like that. Trying to sell the idea a little bit here. Yeah, let's get some border radius on that. Let's get some glassomorphism going on it. Try 15% on that. And then I think what we want to look at is some background blur. Add a stroke to that. Add like 50% or something. Because that's something you need to do is whenever you're making a design, you have to kind of think about what is believable, what makes a design believable. And I think in this case, what would help is a few figures to kind of go with the idea here. Just building out the idea here a little bit, so something like this. Something increase, something data leaks, something like that. I think that sells the idea a little bit. You may need to adjust the size of this though a bit. Overall, it kind of resonates as being too dense at the moment. So let's give this a bit more space to breathe. Can enlarge it a little bit. The issue now is just that these don't seem to stand out very much against the background. Spacing is just kind of off in general, so we need to kind of move this down a bit. Make this a little bit bigger here. Okay. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. I think we might need to condense these figures a little bit. All right, so let's align this. So what is this aligned with? I think it's aligned with that center-wise, but let's try to grid the rest of these. Let's see, should we do contours for that text? Let's see if that looks good. Contours. You can also, I suppose, look at gradienting this a bit. I don't think that's great. Maybe you can look at highlighting this through this a bit. So let's make this a bit brighter. Just that text a tad. We just want, I think, a bit more contrast with these so you can see the text very well. Okay, I think it might actually be a bit too dark still, so let's see if we can brighten this up a little bit. Nice. Might even look at decreasing the size of it a little bit. I think something about the I mean, the first section I think is fine, but the second section seems to be missing a little something. So let's see if we can improve that. Adding some dimension here to the top portion. We can do with some lower opacity, perhaps. Something like that. I think the issue is just that that doesn't seem to quite fit with the rest of this. Oh, what would be nice here actually would be some SVG elements. So let's see if we can add some of those. Kind of being associated with hacking and tech and such. I think that really did add something nicely there. Question is the size. I think we could probably look at filling this out like this. I think that really just pulls together the idea a bit more cohesively. I think maybe we can even extend that a little bit. I think a smaller size actually doesn't go that well. Okay, so I think if we do that, then I think we need some more even spacing with the section below it. So we can look at doing something like this. Yeah, and it ties together the particles as well in the actual image below, so that makes sense. All of this is too much though right now. All this is just a bit too much. So let's see if we can actually go the other direction, reduce this a tad. So this would be some more even spacing here. I think that's a bit better. This linear gradient feels a bit childish, perhaps a bit too vibrant. So you could look at doing something like that instead. You do lose something that way though. Let's see if we can just make it a bit darker and see if that does better. Okay. Okay. So all that being said, have all this now. The issue I'm running into is that there's something uncompelling about how the grid of the top section is currently laid out. I think this makes more sense when you have the elements stacked this way instead. So I think with that, you could probably just move this here a bit down. A bit further. Or actually, you could probably just move this whole thing a bit down. Okay, so I think the top portion is better this way. Top portion does seem to make more sense this way, but something still feels kind of off about it. And that's sort of what I'm trying to do now, is to just balance things visually as well as I can. Could be that we want to repeat this on this side just to kind of strengthen the grid alignment of it a bit. Oh, that center line there. I feel like this does make more sense, actually. And then you can look at various ways to align this here. There's still something about this grid that I'm not that big of a, or that this gradient that I'm not that big of a fan of, though. I can't really tell exactly why it's not really working for me. Yeah, maybe it just needs to be a little brighter. I think that works just better, just right away. Right away, that's really more in the neighborhood of what we're going for. Maybe we can even replace the following gradients with that. So if we go AA2 to AA3. No, that's not quite it. Okay, I think that's fine then. I think that's fine as is. So I guess now what we want to look at is just make sure everything is as aligned as it can be. So let's see if we can align a portion of this to the sort of ending of this portion of the graphic to the top, but and then here I think we should probably cut the graphic off, so we can cut it here. I think what may be missing here is some social proof at the top. Because you have to think conceptually, does it make sense? If you go to a landing page and it just has pretty visuals but no real compelling content, sometimes that's conflated with how visually appealing it is. So I think we need to add some more social proof here. 37, 5 awards, something like that. 37 years experience, and then 4.8 on Trust Pilot, something like that. Just really kind of get some social proof included here, and make this a little bit more compelling that way. So we need to start thinking about how we're going to align these. We don't want to align it directly on the center, but I suppose what makes sense is a foregrid, because we have the kind of squiggly thing at the very right. So I think, okay, so I think we can do something like this maybe. "37 years experience, 4.8 on Trust Pilot." That seems fair enough. I think we can maybe bottom line those like that. The issue I have is just how this is aligned at the moment. It's not really aligned in a logical way. So let's exclude this from the alignment and just focus on these. And in focusing on these, I think we may be able to put these here instead. So let's put these in here. Let's get the grid going. And then from here, I can barely see the grid at the moment. So let's hide this for now. Okay, so it's there. All right. So this is roughly where the grid starts. Then it ends right here. With that, I think we could probably reduce this to something smaller, like that. Still not quite. It's not quite making sense for me. Okay, so it's how many columns this is? Actually, what if you just make it like this, but just replace awards there? I think I like that a bit more. Okay, so now it's doesn't seem as random, the alignment that is. Okay, I think that might be a bit better. They're just so far spaced apart though. I think maybe the font size here could be the issue. So let's go with something bigger. Let's even out the spacing a bit. Put it back to 1200. Okay. That does make a bit more sense. I think the issue I'm having though is just the top alignment. So I may need to lower this a tad, perhaps to here. Something like that. That's better. That's so much better. And then you can go one notch down for the main headline. Yeah, that makes more sense. I think in doing so, though, you also need to adjust the text spacing here. Yeah, that makes more sense. I think maybe you can have an offset of it, but no, that doesn't quite resonate. I think we want to have the center aligned with the text. Actually, looking at this alignment, you may actually want to align this to the awards above. Maybe if you separate these out a bit, so you have get in touch, where's that? Perhaps, yeah, align this to the top a bit more. Have this like line right here. Then maybe have this follow that. I think it's starting to look a bit nonsensical right now. Okay. Yeah, I think the spacing has to revert a bit, actually. The issue is that I don't want that much attention to the section above. Maybe I can adjust that just through pure font sizing, so I can reduce that like that. However, if I do that, I think the particles here need to be adjusted as well. So I'm going to just do that. I think that makes a little bit more sense. Okay, so we have experience, awards, all very good things. And now I just think we need to adjust this a tad as well. So going 75 on that, aligning that with the grid. I think putting this at 90 probably is not what we want to do. Something about this that is not quite working. Perhaps it's either the text spacing or the particular gradient. Just going to do this. Zooming out a bit. It might actually be the text alignment that doesn't make the most sense. So you can maybe look to extend that. So you can have that go all the way. Yeah, that makes more sense. I think what I need to consider here is raising this again. And I should also consider not aligning these. Something else that I could consider is overlaying the text. No, that's not great. What is it about this that doesn't really make sense? I think the top portion, the composition is off somehow. I'm not quite sure why. Let me play around with it a bit. So maybe we need to increase the font size of this a tad. Security systems in bold letters there. Need to probably align these, space these a bit. Yeah, that creates a bit of an anchor on the right side of the composition where it otherwise would look quite empty. So I think that could be beneficial. Yeah, I think that's better. Now, we probably want to change the alignment a tad here. And we probably also want to match the letter spacing. So the top portion has kind of dense letter spacing. The first Maltech text, so we probably want to match that across the board. I also think that part of this image is not quite where it needs to be. Perhaps it's a bit too bright. Perhaps I can lower that. And that creates a nice contrast there with the rest of the elements. think some other thing we need to do is to cut this text just a tad. Or perhaps make it a bit larger. Reduce the letter spacing. Because this adds a bit of breathing room at the bottom here, which might allow us to increase the size of this graphic a tad. I think maybe we need to create some separation here for this navigation. It's a bit too condensed that way. Maybe we need to actually formally separate the top portion as well with a line just like this. Actually, instead of those lines, maybe we should be consistent and just use text for it. I think that makes some sense. Okay. No, it doesn't actually look that great. I think perhaps we just need a taller section in general. Something like that. Well, when you zoom out, you kind of lose it. You lose the idea of it. Let's spread this out a bit. Tech, something like that. Make this a bit smaller. Okay, and I think with that too, we also need to move this whole section down even further. Something like that. Give it a bit more white space, a bit more room to breathe. Offset that a tad still, perhaps minimize this size a bit. And the other thing to consider probably is the width of this gradient. You can have it go narrower, wider. What I'm not liking is the spacing above with all the awards and stuff. It just feels so spaced apart that it's kind of incoherent. So I think that is a bit better. Grid aligned now. Doesn't feel balanced though. I'm not sure why. Maybe we can add some type of layer here. Just to kind of justify the alignment we just made. And then we can maybe minimize the size of this a bit. It doesn't quite work. With these added elements, I think we need to maybe bring the image in a bit more. And this whole alignment scheme, update that as well. Maltech security systems, and we should probably, we can maybe even do this. So should you go brighter or darker with this? Yeah, I guess you could go brighter. Makes more sense in the section, actually. Okay. Okay. So I think I've been able to justify some alignments here with elements we've added. And I think this makes enough sense. We zoom out 1,000,000%. Still think that the alignment does make a lot of sense. Let's just look at the navigation. So navigation is Mona sounds. It should be on Sanium. And I think this makes enough sense, layout and content wise. So I think that's it. Ready to post, I suppose. Just going to fine tune some of the alignments down here to make sure that this all is kind of coherent with the graphic. But with this, I think the graphic is kind of lost. So I think we should probably increase the size of it. We obviously wanted to align to the top section still, but not in a way that you kind of lose the graphics. So we want to just adjust this a tad. Maybe we can actually adjust it to the center. Let's just extend this fully. Send that to the back, and then bring these back over. All right. We want to make the graphic a tad smaller though. Something like that. Yeah, you do want to change the alignment of this a bit. Just that these graphics or these kind of highlight points don't really make sense anymore in terms of alignment. So we need to just update these. That does make a bit more sense, but we need to update the alignment of these just a tad more. So yeah, that makes more sense. The last one there should be just a bit above though. Like that. Just gonna eyeball it here. Cool. I think that looks good. And I think with that, we are all ready to go. Maybe we should do some last adjustments here. see if we should just not this below. Cool. I think that works. Works well enough. So yeah, I think that's really it. I'm gonna post this out, and yeah. If you've been watching, thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you later.